Have you ever found yourself wrestling with life's biggest questions? Well, in his book, The Logic of God, Ravi Zacharias lays out a fascinating framework for faith. Today, we're going to dive right in and explore his intellectual and spiritual roadmap for finding answers that actually make sense.
You know the ones I'm talking about, right? The big ones. Where did I come from? Why am I even here? How am I supposed to live? And of course, what happens after all this? These aren't just random thoughts we have in the shower. According to Zacharias, they are the deep, powerful currents running beneath the surface of everything we do. And this is where the book's whole argument really begins. He says you can't treat these questions like they're just abstract puzzles. No, they're deeply personal. So to even begin to find an answer, you have to start with the person who's asking. You have to start with you.
Okay, so if we, the questioner, are the starting point, where do we go from there? The book proposes that any worldview worth its salt has to provide a satisfying answer to 4 fundamental questions that every single one of us carries around. And here they are, the big 4: origin, meaning, morality, and destiny. I mean, think about it for a second. Every major story, every philosophy, every single religion, they're all trying to answer these 4 questions. They're the absolute building blocks for making sense of life. Where did all this start? What's my purpose? How do I know what's right and wrong? And what's the final chapter? So, we have the questions. Awesome. But how in the world do we sort through all the different answers out there? Well, the book gives us a toolkit, a framework we can use to test the truth of any worldview we come across. The very first tool is a specific way of thinking about truth itself. The main idea is this: truth is, by its very nature, exclusive. Kind of makes sense, right? If I say I'm in this studio right now, that statement automatically excludes the possibility that I'm also on Mars. The book argues that spiritual truth works the same way. 2 totally contradictory claims, like God exists and God does not exist, they just can't both be true at the same time. Okay, so with that idea of truth in our back pocket, Zacharias gives us 3 key tests for any worldview. First up, logical consistency. Basically, does it even make sense with itself, or is it full of contradictions? Second, empirical adequacy. Does it actually match up with the world we see around us, with science, with history? And third, and this one is so important, experiential relevance. Does it connect to your life, to my life, to our joys, our heartaches, the things that keep us up at night? Because let's be real, a worldview that only works on paper is pretty useless. And speaking of real life, this brings us to one of the biggest, toughest tests for any belief system: the undeniable reality of suffering. This is where that experiential relevance test really gets put through the fire. This is the question that has honestly shipwrecked a lot of people's faith. It's a powerful, raw, and deeply painful question. If there's a good and all-powerful God, why is the world so full of pain and heartbreak? The book doesn't shy away from this. It tackles it head-on. Now, the book's approach here is really interesting, kind of turns the question on its head. It argues that the moment you call something evil, you're automatically assuming that such a thing as good exists. And if you believe in an objective good, that implies there's some kind of universal moral law. And if that exists, well, the book asks, where did that law come from? The argument is that it has to come from a moral lawgiver. So in a strange way, the very problem of evil actually ends up pointing back toward the existence of God. And to really bring this home, the book tells this absolutely heartbreaking but powerful real-life story. It's about a young woman with a rare condition called SIPA. What that means is she can't feel any physical pain at all. And her mother actually says she prays for her daughter to feel pain. Why? Because without that warning system, her daughter is constantly in danger of hurting herself badly and not even realizing it. It's just a stark reminder that pain, as much as we hate it, can sometimes be a shield. So here's the crucial leap. If we, with our limited human understanding, can see how physical pain can be protective, is it at least possible that an all-knowing God could use suffering to alert us to a much deeper problem, a spiritual one? The book suggests that pain might just be the very thing that makes us look for a rescue we never even knew we needed. So after building this framework and tackling that huge objection, the book moves on to present the Christian answer to life's big questions as being not just another plausible option, but as something fundamentally unique. Hey, remember that point about truth being exclusive? Well, it turns out that's not just a Christian thing. Every major worldview has its own set of non-negotiable exclusive claims. Hinduism has karma and reincarnation. Islam holds that Muhammad is the final prophet. So the question isn't if a worldview makes exclusive claims, but whether those claims hold up to those tests for truth we talked about. And when we get to Christianity, the author zooms in on 4 very specific claims, and they all center on the person of Jesus Christ, which he argues makes Christianity completely and utterly unique.
So what are they? First, a unique diagnosis of what's wrong with us. It's not just our behavior, it's our hearts. Second, a unique solution, not earning our way to God, but receiving grace as a totally free gift. Third, a unique founder, Jesus Christ, the only one who lived a perfect life. And fourth, a unique validation, the resurrection, which is presented as the ultimate proof of his claims.
And this all leads to what might be the book's most important point. You cannot separate Christian philosophy from the person of Jesus Christ. Think about it. With other belief systems, you could maybe remove the founder and still follow the teachings. But with Christianity, Jesus is the teaching. He doesn't just show the way, he claims to be the way. And that changes everything. But hey, logic and arguments are only part of the puzzle. What about that third test, experiential relevance? The book wraps up by taking this entire framework and bringing it right back down to earth, into our everyday lives with a really beautiful metaphor. The author talks about visiting a place in India where they weave these incredibly intricate wedding saris. And he describes watching a father and son team at work. The father is sitting up on a raised platform, holding all these different colored spools of thread. He's the only one who can see the grand design, the whole pattern in his mind. And then, down below, sits his son. His job is incredibly simple. Every time his father nods, he just passes a shuttle with the thread from one side to the other. That's it, back and forth. From his perspective, it's just repetitive, maybe even meaningless work. He has no idea what's going on above him. He can't see the stunningly beautiful pattern that's taking shape. And right there, that's the whole point. Our lives can feel exactly like that sun's view from below, can't they? Just a series of disconnected, sometimes confusing, sometimes painful events. We're just moving the shuttle back and forth, wondering what the point is. But the argument is that maybe, just maybe, from a higher perspective, a grand weaver is taking all of those threads, the good, the bad, the confusing, and weaving them into something incredible, something with purpose. And that's the final question the book really leaves us with. It's an invitation. A challenge to consider that even when the threads of your life feel tangled and random, a logical, beautiful pattern might be emerging, just out of sight. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.